Hi, this is Dave with Level Up Woodworking, and today I'm talking about organization yet again because I need it. How many times are you trying to glue something up and you're looking for it in all your drawers and cabinets and can't find it because it's not all in one place? It's a real problem for me, and I'm going to try to fix that. I'm always looking through these drawers or pulling clamps off this rack here. Yeah, it's all close to my table, but still, I think I can do better, and so I'm going to try to do that today. Now, like a lot of other projects, once I figured out what I wanted to have in a glue-up station, I went into Google SketchUp and made a preliminary layout of how things would fit. And I've got a panel on the side of my table here that I'm going to use to mount this. And I looked at spatial requirements and needs. Then I made a second one. Now here I put in some dimensions for the wood to see how things would fit. And then I made a final plan, and this is what I'm actually going to build. And I will have plans available for this if you're interested, either to mount it on a wall or mount it on the table that I have here. And I think either way it will work out really good. So let's start cutting some wood to get this going. So I started by joining the wood on my table saw. Yes, I said table saw. I built a joiner jig, very simple. Actually works really well. I've been pretty happy with it. I have bought a joiner since then, and you'll actually see it sitting in the background with a towel over it. I'm going to rebuild that eventually, and then I won't do it on the table saw anymore. I laid out the piece for the glue bottle holder with all the holes and the oval holes and started cutting these on my drill. And unfortunately, I haven't built a drill stand or a drill press table yet. So it was a little awkward to try to get all that drilling done, but it worked out okay. And you'll see in a future video that I'll be building a table. So that's coming up. Anyway, I got all that finished, and the oblong pieces, I just cut holes in the ends and then used my jigsaw to clean those out. And got that oblong shape, and then I went back to the drill press to use the oscillating function, which I think is kind of awesome, to sand the insides of all the holes. And that actually worked really well for this particular process. I was very happy with it. This is one of those projects where you kind of have to drill all the holes and then assemble it together. And I finished this bracket right here, which will hold all my glue and glue utensils. It's going to go up here, and this thing will rotate out a couple inches. Makes it a little easier to put the glue in and push it back so it's not sticking out so far from the cabinet. So what I've done is clamp this base piece and these side pieces in place so I can drill pivot holes on the bottom. And one of the things I learned from one of the YouTube videos is using playing cards as shims. They work really well. So I put 5 shims or 5 playing cards in each side. I think that'll give it enough clearance to be able to pivot out a couple inches, and clamp these pieces on the side, and I'm going to drill screw holes through, and I'll put dowel pins in to make that the pivot point. And then I'm going to cut slots in the top so this will rotate out. And the way I'll do that is I'll drill a hole down here and then mark it with a pencil as I pivot on these points. And that'll give me a really nice line that I can work with to be able to cut those slots. Okay, now that I drilled these holes and I put the pins in, I also drilled small holes in the top because that's what's going to pivot out. And I didn't use a dowel size because I wanted to use my pencil to scribe a line and I didn't want it to move too much. So I scribed that line, and that's basically the arc that I want to cut a slot in so that this can slide out and back in easily. Once I cut the slot I will cut for the dowel, and I will drill a bigger hole and put that dowel in there. I'm actually going to glue the two in these pieces and have them free move on the other pieces. So I've done that on both sides, as you can see, and now I need to cut these slots. I put both pieces of wood together and I used a hole punch to set the hole for the drill bit. And I pushed the starting point back just a little bit because it'll bump up against the cabinet, so that's okay. And then I brought the other point out a ½ inch. I just didn't want to get too close to the edge of the wood. And I'm using a 21/64 bit for a 5/8 inch dowel, so it's just slightly larger. So the holes on the end will be perfect, and then I'm going to attempt to cut it with my jigsaw, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm trying to get a good slot there. With those holes marked and the arc defined, I just used my drill again to drill these holes. Again, a drill press would have been better, but I had the piece there all clamped down and everything, so I decided to go ahead and do that. And a little key here is I cut that arc a little bit wider than a dowel, and that gave the glue bottle piece the freedom to move, but it actually clicked into the spots where I drilled the hole for the dowel, so it worked out really good. For cut, I kind of switched gears and moved to building the glue holder caddy, if that's what you call it, and glued that all together because I'm going to have to do some things with that before I work with the rest of the assembly. So put that together, put the dowels in, and was ready to cut some angles on the bottom of that holder. And those angles give me an opportunity to rotate it inside the glue rack without any hindrance. And I had to try this a couple of times to figure out what would work, but you can see there I put a nice 45 on the edge, and I actually did that on the front and on the back side. Moved on to routing the slots in the glue rack to be able to put a cover on the box that holds the gloves, as well as the cover for the paper towel. And you only wanted to go so far, so I used a clamp here to set a stop for that. I finished cutting the slots in the on the router for the paper towel and for the gloves, and now I need to cut a slot in the end. So I've translated the measurements here over to the end piece, and I'll cut this out on my bandsaw. That way I can slide a 1/4 inch piece over the top of the paper towel to hold it in. And when I want to fill it, I can slide that piece out and put more paper towel in and then slide the piece back in. And of course, there'll be a slot there for the paper towel so you can pull it out. Same thing with the gloves. There'll be a slot to pull that out. So Okay, I started gluing some of the cross pieces here, and I see I have a little bit of gluing run. I can fix that. Anyway, I started gluing some of those pieces, and I picked up some pipe at my local hardware store. And what I want to do with this is this small pipe I'm going to cut and put in here to hold my gluing sticks. And then the larger pipe, I'm going to put a piece across the bottom, and I'm going to use it to house my gluing mat. And then what's left of that, I'm going to cut into making gluing stands. I've seen those stands on a few videos before. I think they look really good. It's a great design, so I'm going to build a couple because I don't have any. So let's go ahead and take my saw here and cut up some pipe. So I cut the smaller pipe on my miter saw, and I cut 3 pieces to specific lengths so it would fit in the glue bottle holder. And that will hold my glue sticks and my razor blade. And that worked out pretty good. From there, I was really finished with this glue bottle holder, but I wanted to get a coat of stain on there, actually 2 coats, before I did the whole assembly together, because I won't get a chance to get all of those surfaces once it's glued together. I used a natural Danish oil stain. I kind of like this. I used a lot of it on the table before, and stained the entire glue bottle holder. And once I got 2 coats on that, I was ready to glue the PVC pipe in place to hold the glue sticks. And I used CA glue with a spray activator for this. And unfortunately, I did not wear gloves. And guess what I did? Yep, I actually activated the glue on my hand with one of the bottles, and it was painful to get it off, let me tell you. But hey, I got it done. I was happy with the result, and I still have skin on my finger, so I guess I'm okay. Okay, I'm ready to glue this thing together. I've stained this, of course. One of the key things is to make sure that there's enough of a cut on the front and the back sides. So you should do a dry fit to make sure it works okay. And I did that, and I had to take a little bit off the back here, and so I've taken care of that. And I tried it again, and now I think I've got it dialed in. Okay, once that assembly was dry and I cut my angles, sanded it, stained it, glued the PVC pipe in place, I was ready to put this thing together. I did glue the top pieces and the bottom pieces that hold the gloves and the paper towel in advance so that it'd be a little easier to glue the whole frame together. And of course I put the dowels through the hole in the slot so it would rotate, and I did a dry fit on that a little bit earlier to make sure that would be okay. And once this is all done, I will actually trim off those dowel ends so they don't stick out so much. And the finished product I was actually really happy with. So got this glued together, let it dry, and I'm ready to move on to the next step of the process. Okay, now that I've got this glued together, and you can see how this rotates, and I stained this already, I need to sand down the cabinet itself, and then I made these sliders right here and drew cutouts for paper towel and gloves. So I want to cut these out, sand them, and then sand down the table and stain this, and then I think we're ready to take the next step. Off camera, I cut the openings in the 2 cover plates for the gloves and the paper towel. You know, it's pretty straightforward. I thought you might get bored with that. So here they are, finished, ready to be sanded and painted. And from there, I wanted to drill the holes to mount this PVC pipe to the bottom of the glue rack. This pipe will serve as an opportunity to hold my pastry mat, yep, I said pastry mat, that I use to glue on, and it works wonders. It's a great product because the glue won't stick to it, it peels right off, and I've been using that for almost 2 years now. Once I got those holes drilled, it was time to paint, and so I started painting the cover plates and that PVC pipe, and I stained the entire glue rack as well to get it ready to put together and mount. Put a couple of coats of paint on here, and again, this is paint that I've picked specifically to match the lighter metal color on the Gladiator equipment because I like that two-tone kind of gray silver. And you know, my whole shop is that way, and I'll probably continue to do that. Some people might consider it boring, but I actually kind of like the way it looks. So just about everything I have in there uses either this light color, this light gray, or a darker gray, which I have used for the frame of my table. this is the moment I've been waiting for. I've been excited to finish this and mount everything in my glue station or glue rack, and worked out great. Needed to buy some elastic to hold in the rolls of tape, as well as some rags, and got those installed, and then it was finished. And I used elastic for the tape because I really wanted an opportunity to pull those rolls out, take tape off, use it as I need, and then put them back. I've seen several people who have them on a rod of some sort, but they're a little harder to get out. And here I use my painter's blue tape and my double-sided carpet tape. Those are the primary things I use when I'm building or gluing items, and so it worked out pretty good. That's all I needed. Here it is, all done, my glue rack. I really enjoyed this build. It's been a lot of fun. I've got access to everything I need to be able to glue up a project on my assembly table, and very happy with the way it's turned out. If you like what you saw today, I've got a lot of cool stuff coming, so please hit subscribe and you'll get access to that stuff. I've got plans for this either for a table mount or a wall mount. So if you're interested in plans, look in the description below. It's been a great build for me. I hope it is for you, and thanks for watching.